Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. The US Treasury Department has asked authorities to investigate the disclosure of tax records cited in a media report that showed that some of America's richest people paid little to no income tax. ProPublica said it obtained a vast trove of Internal Revenue Service data on the tax returns of some of the country's wealthiest individuals. The data indicated that billionaires, including Amazon founder Jeff Bezos and Tesla founder Elon Musk, paid no federal income taxes over several years.
There is more to be done to ensure that corporations, individuals...
The White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said that any unauthorized disclosure of confidential government information was illegal. Israel says a media building destroyed by one of its airstrikes in the recent Gaza conflict was being used by the Hamas militant group. The Jala Tower housed the offices of the Associated Press and Al Jazeera. AP news agency said it had not seen evidence to support Israeli allegations that militants were operating there. Israel Defense Forces said that Hamas was using the building to try to jam its Iron Dome missile system. The militant group denied it had offices in the building. Authorities in Nicaragua have arrested 2 more potential presidential candidates in the run-up to elections later this year. Felix Maradiago and Juan Sebastian Chamorro have been accused of terrorism and plotting against Nicaragua's sovereignty and independence. They were held under a controversial new security law passed in December by President Daniel Ortega. The US branded Mr. Ortega a dictator following the arrests. El Salvador has approved a law to classify Bitcoin as legal tender, making the Central American nation the first in the world to do so. A majority of lawmakers voted in favor of the initiative to create a law that will formally embrace the cryptocurrency, despite concerns about the potential effect on El Salvador's program with the International Monetary Fund. The government said that the use of Bitcoin, whose use will be optional, would not bring risks to users. Its use as legal tender will go into law in 90 days' time. Taliban insurgents have shot dead at least 10 mine clearers working in Afghanistan's northern province of Baghlan and wounded more than a dozen. Afghan officials blamed the Taliban, saying militants started shooting everyone in the Halo Trust compound. Violence has sharply increased across Afghanistan since the US announced plans in April to pull out all of its troops by September the 11th. The Taliban are fighting government troops in 26 out of 34 provinces, and the insurgents have recently captured more than 10 districts. More than 30,000 nurses in New Zealand have walked off their jobs in a nationwide 8-hour strike after negotiations with the government for better pay and working conditions failed. The strike action came after the New Zealand Nurses Organisation rejected a 1.4% pay hike proposed by the District Health Board earlier this week. The government says the nurses' demands amounted to a 17% increase that it can't afford, but pledged to continue negotiations. A British charity group has said that dozens of children, most of them girls, have been abducted by jihadist groups over the past year in Mozambique. The group Save the Children says at least 51 children have been abducted amid violence and insecurity that has displaced hundreds of thousands of people. The charity has expressed concern that such abductions were a new and alarmingly regular tactic by armed groups involved in the conflict. Opposition MPs in Namibia have attacked the government for its recent settlement with the former colonial power Germany. The deal saw Berlin acknowledge that it had committed genocide against the Herero and Nama ethnic groups and pledged €1.1 billion for their welfare today. During the parliamentary session, one opposition legislator said there'd be no chance to undo the economic trauma caused by the genocide. German colonial forces wiped out more than half of the Nama and about 80% of the Herero population. And finally, a US chocolatier is selling a new sweet that has caused quite a bit of controversy: cicadas covered in chocolate. The employees gather the cicadas from trees behind the shop. The bugs are then placed in a paper bag and put into a freezer. They are then boiled to clean them before being crisped in an air fryer. Once the cicadas have been fried, employees then sprinkle them with either cinnamon or Old Bay, and they are then covered in chocolate. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel Studios in Lagos.